forward very much to being in Montenegro in early June to be with participants at this conference organized by the Montenegro Managers Association in cooperation with other management associations. And the topic, I think, is an absolutely vital one in our time, which is leadership. Leadership and challenges. But it's in the context of managers. And so I want to talk a little bit about leadership and management. Both leaders and managers make decisions. They have power, they have authority. They are in a position every time they make a decision to deal with risk, to absorb risk. What they decide to do may work well, may not work well. They're also dealing with people's hopes and people's fears. They're also trying to achieve real results. So leaders and managers are different from journalists, from entertainers, from academics, from religious leaders who talk. There's some notion of power and the wise use of power, which we put in our minds when we think about leaders and managers. However, a lot of people, academics, people in business school, have made a distinction between leadership and management. And the point is that there are different kinds of decisions to be made. Leaders make certain kinds of decisions. Managers make a different kind of decision. The simple thought that people have put out there is leaders make decisions that address why should we do something. Address the question of what's important. Where do we want to go? What is meaningful? What is our purpose? What is the big picture, so to speak? Why should we commit ourselves? What is the best strategy to make things better? And then managers are the ones who make decisions about how are we going to get there. The road has been chosen. Are we going to walk? Are we going to ride a horse? Are we going to drive a car? If we're going to drive a car, what kind of car? How much gas do we need? Where are we going to get the gas? Those kinds of things. It's the how and how to get there and the wherebys, if you will. However, it's also been commented that leaders who don't know how to manage are bad leaders. And managers who don't know how to lead are bad managers. The two skill sets intersect. A leader is not only one who has a grand vision and sees far into the future. If a leader does not understand how to get things done, how to get management in place, the leader is kind of ridiculous, maybe, useless, raises our hopes, or is just naive. At the same time, a manager who has no sense for leadership gets lost in the trivia. A manager who has no sense of strategy, of vision, is always working on little problems, fixing this, fixing that, and it's like the wheels are turning, but the car goes nowhere on the road. So somehow we need, if we're focusing on management as our job, we need to be open to leadership. And if we're leaders, we also have to be respectful of management, because both need to come together to achieve results. Leaders need vision. Vision comes from values. Vision comes from ideas. Vision comes from deeper beliefs. Vision is different from technical accomplishment. Vision is not necessarily just scientific or professional. It's more than engineering. It's architecture in some sense. It's the design genius that goes into whatever it is we make. Leaders and leadership is wrapped up, many people say, with the concept of strategy, with the future, with the long term, with building towards something. Managers are more day to day in implementation, in responding to difficulties, to challenges. There's an inherent bias to the short term in management and to the excessively long term in some kinds of leaders. If we focus now on managers, there's a concept that's vital to being a good manager, and that's the notion of stewardship. Managers are responsible for outcomes. They're responsible for assets, human assets, the cultural assets of the entity, the financial assets, the productive capacity, access to markets, access to supplies, funding. But to say that a manager is a steward is to say that a manager has a certain kind of responsibility. It's a responsibility, I suggest, to grow assets. And assets are both tangible and intangible. They're capital. They're various kinds of capital. And we're mostly familiar with finance capital. Cash in the bank, inventories, the value of a piece of land, the value of a factory building. We also easily talk about human capital, but we don't look at it so much as a real asset. Do we really look at our people as assets of the business which need care and they need solicitude? We have to take care of our human capital. We have to train it. We have to reward it in all kinds of ways, not just with money, but with respect. And if we decentralize our decision making, if we turn some of management over to more and more people, we get them engaged, productivity goes up. The value of their capital that they bring to the company goes up. We can also think of moral capital. We can think of social capital. We can think of cultural capital. We can think of natural capital. Management needs to reflect on all these kinds of things. And its job then is taking the capital assets and putting them to work to generate returns. And the returns then make the capital assets grow. And in the growing, that means the financial returns are better, the return on human capital, the people get better, the culture, it gets stronger, the entity gets stronger, the community gets stronger around it as its relationships. The relationships between an entity, a firm, a government agency, and its stakeholders, those are all assets. Each relationship is an asset. It can be more valuable to the entity, or it can become a source of negative energy and difficulty and opposition to the entity. So the manager as a steward is constantly charged with good stewardship, building up the assets, making things stronger and better for the future. This ends up with 2 points. One, stewardship brings in corporate social responsibility. Taking care of stakeholders is the social responsibility of a corporation and also a government entity, because there are managers all over government. And then there are publicly owned companies which have managers, but they report up to a government supervision. But they too are managing assets for the good of the employees, of customers, of the community, of the nation. The second thing that we get when we talk about stewardship is the notion of fiduciary duties in the American legal term. Fiduciary duties are the duties of a good steward, of a good manager, and they consist of loyalty. Loyalty to the organization, loyalty to the strategy which the leaders have set out, and that means the manager is there to serve, to be loyal, not to take care of himself or herself. The job is there for somebody else, not just for you. You're paid in order to do a good job. You're paid in order to serve well. The second standard of a fiduciary duty is to take good care, is to use good judgment, to be flexible, to speak up when things are not going well, to reward people when they're going right, to take risks, but prudent risks, and mostly to be aware of all kinds of things, to avoid negligence, to be able to say that, yes, I thought about this, I see the consequences, and I know, and I've got some good ideas, or I can bring people in, I can consult with people. Do we have a problem here? How are we going to solve the problem? Due care is a problem-solving skill, and it's very important to getting things done well. So these are just some thoughts about leadership and management, which I hope are of interest to you, and I look forward again to visiting Montenegro in a few weeks.